Donald Trump's warning to Jerome Powell might finally reset the global markets. This clip just broke the internet today.
He said that the termination of Jerome Powell cannot come fast enough. He says he won't leave even if you ask him to.
Oh, he'll leave. If I ask him to, he'll be out of there. But I don't think he's doing the job. He's too late, always too late, a little slow, and I'm not happy with him. I let him know it, and if I want him out, he'll be out of there real fast, believe me.
So I think the real question is, will Jerome Powell be out of there really fast if Donald Trump does ask him to leave? And what will this mean for the global markets? Well, let's listen to Jerome Powell himself. Will he leave?
President-elect's advisors have suggested that you should resign. If he asked you to leave, would you go?
No.
Can you follow up on, do you think that legally you're not required to leave?
No.
How about that for an answer? So today I want to answer the question. What happens if Jerome Powell is forced out of the Federal Reserve chair? What will Donald Trump get? Well, I think to begin unraveling today's story, I want to start by not only recognizing what another global superpower in China is doing, because we are going to come back to China and them buying absolute record amounts of gold and selling a different asset at the end of today's video. But America seems very focused with what Europe is doing. So Donald Trump tweeted this out today on Truth Social. He said the ECB is expected to cut interest rates for the 7th time, and yet, too late. Jerome Powell of the Fed, who is always too late and wrong, yesterday issued a report which was another and typical complete mess. So what is our friend Donald Trump so worried about? He's worried about the fact that the entire globe is already cutting interest rates. That's what this chart is looking at, showing that all of the world's central banks have really embarked on this interest rate cutting cycle that Jerome Powell has not yet started in America. Now, what's really interesting about the globe central banks aggressively cutting interest rates like they are today is the fact that there is a little bit of a canary in the coal mine. We can see gold is sending a huge warning signal to the entire world. Gold is screaming something's wrong in the monetary system. Now, this is why I believe Jerome Powell is being forced to potentially, he's coming under pressure from Donald Trump. And as we're going to show you with China in the second part of today's video, all the central banks around the world are beginning to align on something. They might be disagreeing about how they're going to come up with the capital to print money and put that money into the system. And we're also going to have a look at what impact this is going to have on Bitcoin. But I think you guys can see the world is recognizing the fact that interest rates at this level, they're beginning to put strains on the financial system. This is why we're watching gold hit all-time highs and aggressively hit all-time highs, mind you. And this is why we're seeing China aggressively buy gold at rates we have not seen in a long time. China is buying absolute record amounts of gold. Okay. We can also see from this headline over here, China Central Bank buys gold for 4th straight months as prices hit record. Okay, gold is soaring, but so is China's buying. What does China know that we don't? What is China trying to achieve with their currency that America is also trying to achieve? Speaking of America, before we answer that question, let's kind of have a look at the predicament facing America right now. So the stock market last week copped a little bit of a shellacking. We know that right now at the time of recording, the S&P 500 is down 21%. Again, we're not a technical analysis channel, but I do think it's really interesting that it bounced perfectly off its previous all-time high it set in 2021, when all the doomers and the gloomers and the $5 net worth boomers, as my friend British Hodl calls them, they were all saying stocks were going to go down 80%. I think we went live when the S&P 500 was at like 4,800. We said, yeah, look, typically when things are this oversold, you're going to get a bounce. And we've seen a bounce here. So who knows, maybe the fact that central banks have already begun cutting rates, this is your signal. This is your little bit of a glimpse into the future of what these central banks are going to do to try to keep their stock markets propped up. Again, we are living in a Ponzi scheme, and the Ponzi needs more money. The Ponzi needs more money to be printed for the Ponzi to continue. It is as simple as that. We are watching the world come to this realization. But again, what's beginning to become even more interesting is the game theory involved in this Ponzi scheme. So right now we're talking about America and their need to keep the money printers on. But it's not just America, okay? What's really interesting, I'm going to reveal this here in a moment, but America is not the only country wanting to keep their money printers on. And that is because global stocks right now are melting down, okay? If we were to pull up another chart, I'm trying to show you, I want to only paint a little bit of a global picture for you guys. So first we're going to take a little bit of a look at, let's have a look at some of the major stock markets around the world, because this is going to tie into some Bitcoin decisions and some Bitcoin acceptances that you guys are going to see here in a moment, because it's not just the US markets really kind of, let's say, struggling under their own weight. A lot of the other markets are also struggling. So I'm trying to find a 50-year or 100-year chart of the Nikkei. That's what I really want to show you guys. Can't find it. Why is my Nikkei chart? Anyway, long story short, Japanese stocks are being absolutely hammered right now. Absolutely hammered. But it's not just the Japanese stocks that are being hammered. It is also every stock market around the world. We could see the Nikkei down from its peak, also saw a big 30% correction. How about the UK? How about the FTSE? The FTSE 100. Again, this thing is, I mean, this is the biggest stock market of the UK. The UK, what do they have? 60, 70 million people. They're a big country, former reserve currency holder of the world. Have a look at how abysmal this is. This thing is only up 20% from its 1999 peak. Think about how abysmal that is for a second. That's as bad as it gets. Think about how far the money supply was expanded since then. The money supply is up by about 5x. The money and the stock market's up 20%. This is why we have a retirement crisis. And this is why I focus so much on the retirement crisis, because most people's money, it's jammed into underperforming stock markets like this. It's the same in Australia. All of your, we call it a superannuation. The majority of our superannuation, it's invested into the banking stocks and all of these other government bonds and just trash that, to be honest, is leaving people a little bit underwhelmed when they finally get to their retirement. But again, I think at the end of the day, the issue we're facing is the fact that the monetary system is crumbling. This is why we're seeing record demand for gold. And this is why we're seeing really strange things emerging, like politicians like Elizabeth Warren writing this letter today. Look at this. Dear Chair Powell, the Honorable Jerome Powell Chair. This is interesting. Trump should not be calling for Powell to lower rates and say he wants him fired. This is hurting the nature of democracy and will ruin the stock market. So this is what Elizabeth Warren said today on CNBC. And now let's have a look at her letter written to Jerome Powell 8 months ago. Look at the date, September 16th, 2024. She says, we write today to urge the Federal Reserve to cut the federal funds rate. Oh boy, currently at a 2-decade high of 5.3%. Isn't that interesting? So Warren was on CNBC today, literally begging that interest rates to be cut. But only, oh my God, I mean, I'm still kind of floored by what she actually said on CNBC. This is hurting the nature of democracy and will ruin the stock market. She actually said that. I didn't realize this letter was as wild as it is. I would love for you guys to watch this video with me. Let's try to watch this together. So my big question is, what's changed? Why is Elizabeth Warren flipped? Has she retired on Bitcoin? Who knows? To McLovin's question, whose side is she on? Who knows? Could she be on, dare I say it, China's side? The same China who recently got exposed for selling 15,000 Bitcoin? We're going to come to that here in a moment because we have some interesting developments to cover when it does come to China. But I did think that that Elizabeth Warren rabbit hole was one we should at least try to wrap our heads around, because I do think it's incredibly interesting. Only 8 months after she wrote a scathing letter at Jerome Powell, she's coming out and saying, yeah, you know what? Donald Trump is threatening democracy. That's what she said. I think at the end of the day, the price of money can help to explain all of the craziness that we're seeing around the world. Again, it's pretty crazy that central banks can set the price of money. And right now, the world has begun cutting interest rates. And I do think it's only a matter of time before America joins this rate cutting cycle. And again, when the money princes are turned on, you're going to want to be owning Bitcoin. You're going to want to be invested into Bitcoin. As Paul Tudor Jones, one of the world's most successful hedge fund managers, said, there is no second best. That's actually Michael Saylor. What Paul Tudor Jones said was that Bitcoin's the fastest horse. Gold would be great, don't get me wrong. Gold will be great, but there is no second best. And Bitcoin is the fastest horse by an absolute long way. Okay, again, if you guys do want to get a saddle on the fastest horse, so to say, and you do want to buy your Bitcoin while you still can, always encourage you guys to sign up with the Bitcoin Well. They're a great Bitcoin-only exchange. And when you sign up, you're going to be getting your very own chance to win some Bitcoin. You might even get the chance to win 0.01 Bitcoin when you sign up. You start buying, and then you can play this game that's on screen right now. This is the Wishing Well, and whoever can grab their phone the quickest at home and scan that QR code will be able to claim those 2,100 Satoshis. And again, you can play the wishing well as many times as you like at home and literally get free Bitcoin once you do sign up and start buying Bitcoin with the Bitcoin Well. So I highly encourage you guys to check them out because again, while some nation states are fumbling the ball and while China might be selling Bitcoin and 15,000 Bitcoin as we're about to uncover, you can actually not you don't have to make the same mistake that some nation states are making. Some nation states are fumbling the ball. They're selling their Bitcoin. Some nation states are rumored to not even hold their Bitcoin. Wouldn't that be a scandal if America didn't hold any of the 190 or 200,000 Bitcoin they're supposed to hold? That's something else I want to cover in a moment for you guys. But again, if you do hold your own Bitcoin, I always encourage you guys, take the next step, back up your own Bitcoin. And you can do that by buying some of these titanium plates that you can get from stamp seeds. So many people make the mistake of having their Bitcoin written down on something as flimsy as paper. I always encourage you guys, paper is not going to last the test of time. Paper is not fireproof. It's probably not waterproof. It's probably not hurricane proof. It's definitely not life proof. This is why I encourage you guys to get these really nice titanium plates you can get from Stamp Seed. Again, you guys can see what happens to paper. Now, I did write down some Bitcoin 12 words on this piece of paper. As you can see, it did not last the test of time. It's broken, it's gone. Do not let your real Bitcoin suffer the same consequences as my Bitcoin backup words on that bit of paper. I always encourage you guys to check out Stamp Seed. You can get 15% off anything you want to buy from Stamp Seed with a promo code Luke15. Highly encourage you guys to check them out. Now, speaking about checking something else out, I want to check out what is going on with China because there's been some rumors flying this week when it does come to China. But China isn't the only nation state who is right now being questioned about how much Bitcoin they have. So in the very same week that China sold 15,000 Bitcoin, America might actually be conducting and guilty of the biggest scandal of history. Again, recently, Donald Trump signed this executive order where he said in 30 days, I'm ordering the White House to give us a full audit of how much Bitcoin America actually holds. Well, guess what? It's officially been 41 days since this executive order. So the question I want to ask today, does America actually hold the 190,000 Bitcoin it's supposed to? And why is China, the world's second biggest superpower, also selling 15,000 Bitcoin, secretly and silently selling 15,000 Bitcoin? Those are two questions that are top of my mind right now because most people think America surely could not be repeating what they did with Fort Knox. Again, to jog the memories of anyone, America hasn't audited Fort Knox in 50 plus years, and people are beginning to become skeptical about whether America actually holds the gold in Fort Knox. Again, do they hold the Bitcoin? Do they hold the gold? Let's have a look. Okay, audio. I apologize in advance. I was hoping that audio there was playing, but Tucker was just outlining the raw reality of how wild it would be if somebody did steal $400 billion worth of America's gold. Imagine that for just a moment. Imagine if America wasn't actually sitting on $400 billion gold. Now, again, this wouldn't be the first time that America actually fails an audit. Our trusted bureaucrats have failed multiple audits previously. Will they fail this Bitcoin one? I hope not. But let's not forget, the Pentagon has actually failed 7 audits in a row, believe it or not. And the really crazy, scary thing about this is that we have a history of losing literally trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. Again, this is one headline that I probably don't want to read out loud on the live stream. I'm very cautious about what we say on this channel. But what I will say is that we have lost a lot of money fighting in different wars around the world. It's relatively agreed upon that the 20-year war on terror cost us $8 trillion. $8 trillion gone. And again, how many audits have our favorite bureaucrats failed in high places? Again, I'm highlighting a lot of problems in today's video, and I hope that I will never be the guy who only highlights problems on YouTube, because let's be honest, YouTube is absolutely full of them. It's full of problem identifiers, but there is no one actually talking about solutions on YouTube. So again, I hope to provide some sort of a solution, but here is one solution that I think we should all remember and be reminded of, and that is the fact that we have a nation state right now demonstrating that you can not only pass audits, but you can publicly show and transparently highlight how much Bitcoin you have. Mempool Space is a beautiful resource for that, obviously. But what I find even more interesting is that some nation states are actually taking advantage of this software, and they're publicly declaring their Bitcoin balances. So this right here is actually looking at the official holdings of El Salvador, a little tiny government in Central America, home to 6 million Salvadorians, and they are publicly showing us how much Bitcoin they have. They're not hiding anything. They're not failing audits like the biggest nation state in the world is, who is also pissing away $8 trillion on a war just to retain their grip on the global reserve currency, which of course is the US dollar. El Salvador is taking a very different approach. They're saying, look, our Bitcoin addresses, they're public. We can't steal your money. Sure, you can be skeptical of where your tax dollars are going. A lot of people are with El Salvador. It's a fair point to make. But at least they can't steal your money to fund wars like some other nation states are. As McLovin says, $8 trillion cost equals $8 trillion profit for somebody. That's the big question a lot of people need to ask themselves. Who is profiting the most from the fiat system? Who is profiting the most by all of the ambiguity surrounding the $400 billion of supposedly missing gold in America's Fort Knox vault? Who knows if it's there? If I had to guess, I'm a betting man, I don't think it's there. I think the same thing that's happening to the Bitcoin supply on exchanges today probably happened to America's gold vaults back in the 1970s. This is why we saw the gold window closed. But America is not the only country potentially in a little bit of a scandal right now, because another huge Bitcoin holder might have just quietly dumped 15,000 coins. Now, this is interesting for multiple reasons. A lot of people have been surprised by the fact that Bitcoin is not absolutely ripping and pumping right now today in 2025. We're Q2 2025 right now. Maybe it's because China and America America don't hold the Bitcoin they're supposed to hold. Again, you're going to have to ignore Germany on this chart because they hold 0 Bitcoin after they paper handed their Bitcoin. But the US and China is supposed to hold a lot of Bitcoin. But what if they don't? What if they've actually been quietly selling Bitcoin? Well, let's have a look at this article. This is from Reuters. Normally, I always encourage you guys, just take any news that you hear on the internet with a grain of salt, including me. Fact check me, please. Anybody or any media organization who's scared to be fact checked, ask yourself why. Everything I say, fact check me, please. But Reuters is a media organization that I think it's okay. Let me just say that. They're okay. They're not bad. But they reported this week China's local governments held an estimated 15,000 Bitcoins worth 1.4 billion at the end of last year. This is interesting. Now, what is happening? Well, a Shenzhen-based technology company has reportedly sold more than 3 billion yuan worth of cryptocurrency in offshore markets since its founding in 2018. Get this, on behalf of local governments, including those of Suzhou, Wuhan, and Taizhou. I just butchered those 3 Chinese cities. I apologize thusly. These are all in a Chinese eastern province. So Reuters is reporting that there is a company quietly but surely selling Bitcoin. Here's another highlighted quote I have for you. Local governments have been using private companies to sell seized digital coins in exchange for cash to replenish public coffers strained by a slow economy. Again, I told you guys I would bring this full circle. This is interesting. Have a look at this. All of this comes at a time of heightened tensions in Donald Trump's second presidency, coinciding with Trump's plan to deregulate cryptocurrencies and build a Bitcoin reserve. So what's happening? Why do I think these two stories are related? Donald Trump wants to fire Jerome Powell. Why? Because Donald Trump wants to lower interest rates. He said in the video we played you guys at the very beginning of today's video, Jerome Powell's been too slow to act. He's not lowering interest rates. Meanwhile, the rest of the world, they are lowering interest rates. This is the chart I showed you guys. Again, if any of the 550 of you guys tuning in between YouTube and Twitter did join this late, rewind the video. We covered all of this. Trump wants Powell out so he can lower interest rates. The rest of the world is lowering rates. Trump's saying, why is Powell not? America wants to print money. China wants to print money. This is why China is selling Bitcoin, secretly and silently selling Bitcoin, because their economy is slowing. They need money. They don't want to print a ton of money and devalue the yuan too rapidly, because the yuan right now is on a knife's edge. It looks as if we could be headed for trouble soon. This here is a 15-year chart of the US dollar and the Chinese yuan. Have a look at it. Just bumping up against this 730 level time and time and time again. Looks as if the US dollar is about to get significantly stronger compared to the Chinese yuan. So again, I don't think whether you got yuan or dollars, you're going to need Bitcoin. This is why Chinese investors are racing to get out of the Chinese yuan, their property market, and their stock market into Bitcoin. Bruised by the stock market, Chinese rush into banned Bitcoin. It's as simple as that. The world is rushing into Bitcoin. This is why I'm more bullish than ever on Bitcoin. This is why I don't think you need as much Bitcoin as you might think. Again, I actually recently conducted an interview with George Bodine, who said you need much less Bitcoin than you think to retire. I'm going to put a link to that video up on screen after this stream for you guys to check out, somewhere around there, if you do want to learn how much you need to retire. And well, they said, guys, I'm going to end this stream here. Thank you so much to everyone who tuned in. Thank you for persevering for the late I'll see you guys in the next stream.